Hi folks, good afternoon to you all. Welcome to another episode in our Tug Life series webinars. This session, we're looking into a hot topic right now, Brandformance. Our webinar today is how to unlock Brandformance with next generation attribution. Now I can see we've still got a few people joining. Let's start in a few minutes. Whilst we wait, just to say we've had a few questions submitted already, which is great. There is the ability to submit questions at any point. We'll cover those off at the end, but don't worry, if we don't get around to your question, we'll reply with an answer when we send the recording of the webinar round. So I guess while we're just waiting for some more people to join, let me introduce myself, the speakers in our session today. So for those who don't know me, my name is Faye Defan. I am the UK MD here at Tug, and we are a performance-driven global digital marketing agency based here in Shoreditch. Hello, by the way, to our international attendees. We've had quite a few sign up through our global offices. Hope you enjoy this content later today. And I am joined by four great speakers. Adam Holmes, Sales Manager at AdSmart, firm speaker on our subject. Heard you lots of times before. Welcome, Adam. Give us a wave. Great. Hannah Thompson, Head of Programmatic and Above the Line here at Tug, regular on stage and in panel sessions, and an expert in measurement techniques here at Tug. Welcome, Hannah. Give us a wave so people know where you are. Roddy Fitzpatrick, Acquisition Manager at TikTok. We've worked together for some time, responsible for launching UK's top agencies onto TikTok advertising. Welcome to you. And last, of course, Imogen Hudson, Key Account Director at Acast. Again, a regular panel sessions speaker and whom I've had the pleasure of hearing speak lots of times before. Welcome, Imogen. Thank you all for joining us. So our topic today, how to unlock Brandformance with next generation attribution. Now, our heritage here at Tug is SEO and PPC, and as search has evolved, so too has brand marketing, and therefore the evolution of Brandformance alongside search marketing has essentially made a much more holistic approach to marketing. And today it's about leveraging the intermediate measurable aspects of performance marketing while also nurturing the long-term brand equity. And what's most important for me, I think, is remembering that emotional connection that comes with the strong branding. And at Tug, we've actually developed a suite of tools to model our client data to understand how that branding efforts impacts across various channels, including search, and how that contributes to conversions and sales. And we'll be digging into that with our guests a bit later as well. Now, in this webinar, we're going to be addressing two key topics. The first is measurement techniques that help show the value of brand activity, which, let's face it, as marketers, is what we want and what we want to show our key stakeholders. And the second topic is new formats, innovation and tech in Brandformance. But before we kick off, I'd like to start by having a quick chat to our guests about Brandformance, what it means to them and what growth they've seen. So Hannah, let me come to you first. What is Brandformance and what does it mean to you at Tug?
So for me, as a media buyer on the advertiser side, we want to look at Brandformance as a shift in the way we look at the measurement and how we talk about more upper funnel channels. So the focus for the last 10 years has been really on those quite instant metrics that you get from lower funnel channels like PPC and SEO, but that has made it quite difficult to measure channels such as out home, TV, audio, print, those kinds of very much more upper funnel things. So we know that those channels are important and integral to building brand awareness, building consideration, loyalty, etc. But showing that level of direct impact that we can see off the back of PPC and SEO is really quite hard. So Brandformance to me is being able to show that real business value of running those channels and those slightly what we call softer metrics of things like awareness, but actually bringing that all the way back through to business results for advertisers.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks, Hannah. How about you, Imogen? Anything to add to that and what it means to Acast?
Yeah, well, kind of in line with what you said earlier. So Brandformance for Acast is kind of taking that holistic approach to results-driven marketing. So this is fueled by insights. So we now know that over a quarter of the UK population are listening to podcasts weekly. There's more content than ever before. There's more ad spend than ever before. And we have teams kind of dedicated to regular analysis of this to ensure that those decisions we make for our clients are informed and results-driven. But then beyond this, we also encourage brands to kind of use creativity to inspire action. So podcast formats span from 30-second ads to sponsorship to more integrated kind of branded content, all offering different ways of connecting with audiences and allow us to pull on those kind of different levers depending on what the need is for the client. So the heart and soul of these formats are podcast hosts. They're authentic, they talk about the relevant topics and connect with listeners on that personal level. So when a host talks to their audience about a product, it creates that perfect synergy of Brandformance, elevating the brand and influencing that customer action. So it's all about insights, creativity and trust that are keywords to remember here. And each one performs for Brandformance.
That's a crazy stat, the quarter of population listening to podcasts. What a growth. Adam, what growth have you seen in this area in the last 18 months over at Sky?
I think the short answer is just consistent growth. I think because we've always been innovators within our field, we've had to evolve with the marketplace. And I think especially with TV, there's probably this misconception that people are watching less TV, which couldn't be further from the truth. It's just the way that people are consuming TV now has many different avenues. And because of that, and generally this has been driven by the demand, not just from market, but from advertisers, is we need to be innovative in the terms and how we're targeting those specific audiences. And more so, I'd say we have to be able to provide performance level-esque solutions and results to advertisers, because as the landscape is constantly evolving and there's way more ways to market your product, it's about just providing that trust to advertisers that not only can we be very specific with our targeting model, but we can also be very specific with the attribution model as well.
Absolutely, yeah, the attribution model is the key thing there, isn't it? Looking forward to hearing more about that later. And Roddy, how about you over at TikTok?
Well, Faye, Brandformance is absolutely everything to us at TikTok. When we first hit the market, TikTok had a reputation for being predominantly a branding channel. And over the past few years, we have built out a really strong performance product, which focuses on optimized delivery, focused targeting, and really strong reporting. But now a key focus of ours is providing solutions that combine branding and performance to give credit to the influence that branding has on sales and ultimately ROI. And I'm really excited to talk through a few really innovative products and solutions that we have later on.
Brilliant, can't wait to hear. What a great start there. Lots of interesting viewpoints to kick us off. So let's get on to our first topic then. Measurement techniques that help show the value of brand activity. And Adam, let's start off with you.
Yeah, so essentially I kind of wanted to just start with touching upon what I just mentioned. TV has predominantly evolved so much every year, and it kind of moves faster than I can even remember some of the propositions that we offer sometimes. But essentially, AdSmart is our jewel in the crown with the targeting, but actually the way that we measure audiences and reach audiences isn't specifically just on TV anymore. So whether it's live TV or on demand, whether it's via streaming platforms or digital, we have solutions that enable brands to engage with our viewers however they watch, because essentially I think, again, in that piece about reaching audiences, it's not only about reaching audiences, but it's making sure that you have that creative cut through when they're ready to receive it. So as you can see on the next slide, and this is probably my favorite thing about what we offer at Sky, is that 75% or more viewability, because essentially if you're investing in creative, right, that really emotive creative, so not only drive response, but also elevate your other media channels, it has to be seen and it has to provide that cut through, because essentially if we don't provide that viewability, when we're sharing obviously all of our analysis, that's not going to support that. And as you can see on the next slide, essentially we really drive down this full funnel effectiveness measurement, because again, when there's so many different types of campaign activations, we need to make sure we have solutions to suit all advertisers across market. So for example, whether it's brand evaluation, with your TV campaigns, we can measure for you ad recall, so how that creative has performed in terms of cut through, reaching that target audience and resonating, which goes nicely onto brand awareness with brand mentions and familiarity KPIs. So for example, advertisers could run a brand evaluation not only to find out their metrics, but also where they sit against competitors in market, and we can provide that level of analysis for you, which then leads on nicely to brand image and consideration, so looking at campaign impact, because essentially I think previously there is this reluctance with TV sometimes, just because it's seen as how we're going to work out whether it's performed. And essentially, I think a lot of my role within Sky is about educating new to TV advertisers or advertisers who predominantly lead with digital activations that we can absolutely provide this level of measurement for you. And that leads nicely onto our web attribution, which again, in the world of 2023, your website is basically your online shop front. So we can tell you intuitively how audiences that have been exposed to the TV creative are reacting to that creative, and this can be filtered down from website browsing. So initially website hits, but also we can filter that data even further down to specific product pages. We can also look at purchase intent, and I think while we're doing the event now, it's a really good example to highlight Black Friday. I know that I've favorited a few items that I'm waiting until their Black Friday sale starts so I can then purchase those items, but we can provide to advertisers that confidence, that you are getting website hits. There's these specific pages that the audience are regularly looking at. But not only that, what we can do finally is really give you that true ROI by performing a matchback report or a sales attribution. So what this is basically we have a portal that we send to advertisers to upload data, which is destroyed immediately after. But then we match back the households that have been exposed and reacting to the creative with the sales data that you have, and we can provide you with a nice report post campaign, as well as all of this other stuff that we do to tell you, listen, you spent X amount of budget, which provided X amount of ROI, which means the campaign was a success. And the reason why I started upon the 75% viewability is because without that guaranteed metric, we wouldn't be able to be confident enough to provide this level of analysis to advertisers, because we understand, especially in businesses that are digital first and maybe adverse to taking risks, for example, on platforms that they haven't used before, we provide you with all that information to give you as much confidence as possible. And I'd just like to touch upon a few case studies on the next slide. Now, essentially, I'm not going to talk through every piece of information on this. This is definitely something to look at in your leisure with a cup of coffee, but I just wanted to highlight a few key stats. So for Oka's first TV campaign, there was over 6,500 incremental website visits, which resulted in a 3.3 uplift of audience resonating more with the creative for the audience that we targeted versus just running a standard TV campaign, which furthermore resulted in a 2.7 to 1 return of investment. And again, if we look at the other case studies on the other slides, we can highlight here. So again, B2B, I think B2B is a sector where some B2B brands feel that they need to be very specific about where they advertise. But again, for us at AdSmart and the wider Sky Media, we focus on those audiences for you, because essentially, working business professionals like ourselves watch TV. We might watch TV differently to say some other people. But actually from this campaign, we can highlight there was a 210% increase in prompted brand awareness, a 44% increase in prompted brand awareness on other metrics, and a 56% increase in spontaneous consideration to use HR and payroll software. And if we look upon the next slide here, you can see, again, a chamber of commerce, particularly for us, and I'm not sure about the other speakers today, but these are brands that particularly have much smaller budgets. They're very considerate about where they place that budget. So to do the TV campaign took quite a bit of time for them to kind of warm up to the idea. But it's obviously wonderful for me working at Sky when we can provide this type of level of results. And as you can see here, 13% membership increase result, 71% increase to the membership website for the commerce, and a 489% estimated return of investment, which I think any advertiser would be super happy with. And as you can see on this next slide here, this is probably one of my favorite case studies that we have, because I think it really encapsulates the different parts of the evaluations and how they feed into each other. Because as you can see here, there's been an 18% lift in brand awareness. Obviously that's great. Even more so, 24% uplift in inquiries, which again, I'd say is probably inquiries for some brands are more important than general brand awareness. But actually that bottom line, which I would say is important for every single advertiser out there, is total revenue generated. And we can attribute here to this single campaign £324,000 was generated as a result of that campaign. And obviously, because of the advertiser, I can't share the budget, but it is considerably higher, the return of investment, than their initial test campaign. And I have one more case study here, which I think really highlights just some of the great things that we do on our platform. But as you can see here, for Anyvan, it's a movable company. The response rate was plus 5%. Great. 32% of unique visitors to the website from Sky households went on to obtain a prize. Even better, but actually the best result here for me, and I think every advertiser would agree, is the 9 to 1 return of investment through sales generated. So I think a selection of those case studies, which we have tons more of depending on advertiser industry, just really highlight those brand performance metrics we can provide to advertisers.
Adam, that's great. Thank you for that. Some really great case studies there. Nice to see some strong B2B ones in there as well. And the matchback report sounds like a really great way to help brands report back on, especially when you're sort of reporting back up the line and unlock more budgets as well. So that was great. Imogen, over to you. What about measuring brand performance in the world of Acast?
So there are actually several ways of measuring impact in the podcast space. So if you go to the next slide, post-campaign, you can see that we can provide reporting on impressions, uniques, and split this out more granularly by kind of geo, time, and device. But beyond this, kind of podcast can be measured in terms of brand effectiveness and attribution. So brand effectiveness studies can measure campaign and brand objectives and KPIs to determine if the podcast activity has been successful in shifting those metrics, like was it noticed, did it impact awareness, has it shifted consideration or intention to purchase, and things like that. So we've actually partnered with Nielsen to offer these studies, and these research packages kind of utilize that classic controlled exposed methodology and are designed to cover those brand KPIs and custom questions. To showcase effectiveness, then we have this case study on the next slide from HelloFresh. So this showcases how these brand studies can help brands understand how their campaign has performed according to their objectives. So with this, HelloFresh wanted to drive subscriptions and cement their brand as kind of #1 choice for those fresh meal kit deliveries. They partnered with one of the biggest podcasts in the UK at the moment, Shag Married Annoyed. They partnered with them for 6 months, where the host created a series of sponsorship reads focusing on that convenience and affordability of HelloFresh. And the results of the brand study, as you can see here, revealed 91% of respondents were aware of HelloFresh, and 28% of respondents said they'd be interested in subscribing to a fresh meal kit subscription in the future. Brand recall also was like extremely high, and the sponsorship resulted in almost 4,000 conversions through the use of that promo code. So HelloFresh have since renewed frequently and one of the kind of top spenders across the podcast space. This just reveals how these brand studies can showcase those key brand metrics that determine that future spend. We've also seen, like, taken learnings from this ourselves and seen a rise in those long-term sponsorship bookings. It's something that's been built and recognized as a result of the study and campaign success. Then in measurement, we also have attribution. So on the next slide, you can see a bit of a snapshot here, but attribution studies are basically when we track conversions via pixel data from Acast and tags from advertisers to determine who received the ads, and then if they then went and visited a brand's site or app. On the next slide, we have an example of Percival doing this. So Percival partnered with our top comedians from comedy podcast Off Menu, Ed Gamble and James Acaster, and they teamed up to create some really cool podcast times Percival merch. Percival wanted to kind of promote this collaboration with a 30-second audio ad. So the audio ad ran across a broad kind of targeting of 18 to 44 males and featured that clear CTA offering of 10% with the code OFFMENU10. The brand spent 7.5k on the campaign, which ran for 2 weeks and saw over £9,000 in revenue directly from that collaboration. So we also ran attribution to track those conversions, of which the results we can see here of 138 uses of the code OFFMENU10, 2.5% CVR from the study, and increased kind of discovery with a knock-on effect of people buying other clothes on the site as a result of the promotion. So this year in general, we've seen a lot more demand for both kind of those brand effectiveness and attribution studies. And these are our kind of current measurement techniques. We're constantly evolving and developing and improving the way we can measure campaigns, and I've seen brands kind of find more reassurance and trust in spending the medium as a result.
Yeah, Imogen, that point on being able to measure that knock-on effect is super key, isn't it? Super interesting, especially in retail as well. Roddy, over to you. How are you unlocking Brandformance over at TikTok?
Well, Faye, to understand Brandformance at TikTok, it's really important to understand our unique customer journey. So I'm sure a lot of people joining today on the webinar have heard the term or heard the hashtag TikTok made me buy it. Well, how did TikTok make you buy it? At TikTok, commerce and performance is really fueled by our community. So our users are open, they're authentic, and they're candid, which means that they're always willing to weigh in on everything that concerns them and concerns their lives. And that often is either a product or a service that they've just bought. And this is where we see the start of this infinity loop that you see in front of you. And this is the discovery section. So users discover a brand or a product on their For You page. And as they further consider that brand or product, the brand itself might accelerate this consideration phase through branded activity or retargeting based on some interest signals that they would have seen at the top of the funnel. This leads to the first purchase, and our users, as they review their purchases internally, the community actually amplifies this consideration through encouraging participation in the review process, which then fuels further purchase and neatly closes off this infinity loop. But the question is, how does this influence Brandformance? And on the next slide, we can see that at TikTok, we have multiple touch points where brands can accelerate the purchase process. At TikTok, we have ad objectives across all areas of the funnel. But what we find with a lot of self-serve advertisers who are focused on return on investment is that they start immediately with running conversion-only ads. However, our internal data shows that bundling branding and conversion increases CVOR 2 to 3 times. And when you couple this with full funnel approach, so branding, traffic, and conversion, it only further amplifies the conversion rate returns that we see, which is really important when dealing with internal stakeholders and showing the value of branding when it comes to your marketing activities. So how does this work when it comes to our video shopping ads? Well, on the next slide, I'm going to run through how, when running branding campaigns, we can use those signals to further influence our bottom of funnel activity. So where the strength of our branding comes is in our video shopping ads. We can actually run integrated 360 campaigns where we can identify either high or low intent users from your branding activity and use those signals to increase performance at the bottom of the funnel. So we automatically pair, if we see someone, let's say, is a high intent user from the branding activity, we automatically pair the creative with their intention. So if they have intent for a certain product, we can pair creative with that product, and not only do that, but pair a specific product instant page with that creative as well, and then drive them to the bottom of the funnel so that we're treating that high intent user appropriately. Conversely, we also treat the low intent users in their own unique way. We might serve more branding or upper funnel focused videos for them so that we're not delivering them straight to a product. And then once we show them the branding product or the branding piece, we then send them to a category page instead of one singular product page, which gives them a more rounded view, and then they can consider and make a purchase decision on the website as such. Now, on the next slide, I want to just go into a bit more detail about whether or not this actually works. And as they say, the proof is in the performance. So 83% of advertisers who use this full funnel video shopping ads approach achieved their KPI goals for retargeting, and 68% saw a ROAS of greater than 3, which is really, really impressive for this type of activity. Now, I want to finish off by showing what really makes TikTok stand out. So on the next slide, I'm going to talk you through our closed loop attribution, which is incredibly impactful for advertisers who are seeing a lot of drop off in attribution results and a lot of people dropping off, clicking off site. Well, on TikTok, we can keep everyone in one place. So when advertisers run shop ads to drive sales and increase traffic to their shops, the first party data available on TikTok further enhances our ad signals. So this ensures that the right ads reach the right users at the right time, and it maximizes engagement and conversions. But what's truly impressive about this is that all purchases and checkouts made on TikTok Shop can be attributed directly to TikTok. So the entire shopping journey remains within a closed loop environment. And this provides seamless and a unified experience for users and advertisers. So this level of integration allows for more accurate and effective return on investment measurement in TikTok, and advertisers can confidently analyze the impact of their campaigns in real time and understand the direct results they achieve through our enhanced signals. So our commitment to providing a closed loop environment combined with its robust ad signals empowers advertisers and ensures a highly efficient and effective commerce experience that uses the branding signals that we talked about earlier to drive bottom of funnel performance.
Thanks, Roddy. I loved your point on communicating to key stakeholders as well in terms of brand activity. I think it's a challenge that a lot of marketeers face in their job roles as well. So we might circle back to that later. But Hannah, tell us about how we're measuring brand performance activity at Tug to make it more meaningful.
Yeah, of course. So I think our speakers so far have talked really well about how some of these more traditionally thought of as brand channels actually do drive brand performance and can really impact bottom funnel. But what I want to go into is how we as an agency who would work with all three of these partners and more look at how we do that across an entire media plan and an entire campaign. Firstly, I just want to talk about how we're investing a lot in data insights and tech and how that's really been key to helping us unlock brand performance. So we're effectively focusing on that investment to build tools that solve the challenges that we as a team, but also our clients are facing in maximizing the performance of our budget. So there are 12 of these tools in total, but I'm going to focus on 2 of our insight tools, which are focused on showing the impact of brand on performance. So the first of these tools is Lift Analytics. So that's the one on the left there. So Lift Analytics effectively helps us correlate the impact of our campaigns on the most important digital metrics for our clients. So for example, if we wanted to look at the general trend between campaign spend and PPC brand searches, just to make sure we're making the whole funnel more efficient, that's possible in this dashboard. But we've also run campaigns for clients where our goal was to drive net new traffic to the website, and we're doing that via out of home. So using Lift Analytics, we were able to measure the impact on new users from those campaigns, and it was super useful. The most important part of this tool to me is being able to look at our data in near real time, so we can actually spot trends right away, and it means that if there are optimizations to be made, we can make them very quickly, and we're always on top of everything that's happening with the campaign. So I think one of the dangers we've had sometimes when we run these campaigns is that sometimes historically we haven't been able to report on the performance of them until after the campaign is finished, but this enables us to have that reporting throughout as well. The second tool on the right here, which I will go into a case study about in a moment, is called Real Impact, and this helps take it one step further by using causal modeling to show with a degree of confidence what incrementality the campaigns we're running are driving. So this tool is a really key part of our media mix modeling offering because it helps us incorporate insights such as how things like the weather impacts the performance of out of home, but also just to be able to help us validate the incremental revenue that we're driving from the campaigns that we run with partners such as Sky, Acast, and TikTok. So looking at case study then, so this is a real life example of a recent campaign we ran for End Clothing. So End is a really fast growing luxury fashion brand, but they were looking specifically for some new revenue streams to enhance growth in what is an increasingly competitive market globally. So from the research we have, we know that their competitors are actively investing in paid social at a much higher level than End are. Or were, but we needed to be able to show that the actual incremental value of that investment to make sure that we could secure that increased and more consistent investment going forward that was needed to really drive real brand performance from this campaign. So the campaign was obviously set up to be best practice. Our team are excellent at doing that. So using things like first-party data to drive users to either a brand-led ad or a lower funnel product ad using a dynamic product feed. That's something that that use of data in our campaigns is something that's super important to us. But we did use both tools, so Lift Analytics and Real Impact, to show the overall impact of the campaign. So Lift Analytics we used to show the impact on brand search. But more importantly, we helped show the actual incremental value of the campaign through Real Impact. So we were able to prove with quite a high level of confidence that the revenue that we generated wouldn't have been generated without that campaign. Real Impact is a tool that we use to help us apply controls as well. So the way that we did this is by looking at controlling for variables such as global pricing indexes, the stock market changes for our competitors, Google Trends for specific search terms, etc. And that enables us to then say, yes, this revenue was driven because of this campaign and for no other reason. So what we were able to demonstrate overall is that there was a 1.2 million incremental revenue lift generated from this campaign. There were also an increase in brand searches across our other channels, so SEO and PPC. And what that has helped us do is actually secure increased investment in this channel and in that brand building activity for this client.
I think that's a good point, Hannah. I think throughout this, it's sort of shown there's quite a big educational piece, especially with sort of marketers and senior marketers, in terms of understanding that branding activity, because we no longer look at attribution in its traditional form, right? So it's all about how we use that model data and how we help teach clients and teach senior stakeholders that is the view that is now going to be the more commonplace, right? Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Great points there from all of you. Let's move to our second topic: new formats, innovation and tech. Adam, let's circle back to you. What is next at Sky?
So there's always something, like I said earlier, new at Sky that I'm having to learn each week out. But essentially today what I wanted to focus on is the way that our targeting is constantly elevating. And I'd just like to highlight that again, this is driven by demand from advertisers and constantly us having to be at the forefront to make sure that our solutions are in line with some of the targeting attributes that you can access on SEO or PPC, for example. And I think it's also really great to highlight, now that we're talking about this, about how Sky is really driving the news TV market, because in 2022 there were 440 news TV brands and 404 of those came via AdSmart, and that is because of the proprietary technology that we have and also the evaluations we have to support it to give advertisers that confidence. But essentially, looking upon the new targeting, or the ones that are constantly elevating currently, I wanted to touch upon these three ones here. So search behavior targeting, which again, if you're using SEO, you obviously understand the importance of that, but we now have the ability via AdSmart and our wider TV offering to look at the strongest indicators of a person's interest or propensity based on their search history, and then build audience segments from that. Another thing I'd like to touch upon is our sports fans targeting, because again, if you mention Sky, shortly after you either follow it generally with news or sport, and it's one of our real main pillars at Sky that we know that audiences and advertisers really see a value in. But actually, in terms of how we activate this, we have our subscriber base at Sky, but we also are known as that sports content and sports distributor. So all the information that we have on these sports fans, we can then utilize this as part of a wider demographic mix. So it's not that we just have to specifically target a sports interest, we can add a variation of factors over this to really fine tune those audiences. And then finally, shopper segmentation targeting. So this is built with Experian using millions of data points to really build a selection of portfolios of various types of shoppers and how these may work for different advertisers. So on the next slide, I've just highlighted some top line information about the search behavior targeting. So we can look at things such as arts and entertainment search history, or shopping, jobs and education, pets and animals, but also we have subcategories underneath these. So for example, if you look at shopping, if you're a luxury brand, you're probably not looking at somebody that's, searching bargains here. But if you are somebody that wants to get in front of an affluence audience who is definitely looking to sell high-end products, then we can fine-tune these audiences for you. And again, on the next slide, you can see here that we also have, the sports interest targeting isn't just specifically just for one thing. So we can break this down by sports, whether it's Premier League, cricket, tennis, NFL, all these variations, but also we can reach these audiences in a live environment or an on-demand environment or across all of the other channels that we have. And we build these audiences based on the TV viewing behaviors we know from each individual subscriber. What we also do to really kind of make this data extra robust is supercharge it with their Sky Sports online interaction and also their app behavior as well. And this is kind of why I wanted to touch upon on the first slides about how we use all the different platforms and touch points that we have to really refine these audiences to give you the confidence to kind of move forward with them. And then finally, on the next slide, we have the Mosaic shopper segments. And I thought it would be good just to kind of show you how these audiences are put together, because it might be some factors that you didn't think was possible to look at. But as you can see here, for us, it's our bread and butter in terms of demographics, whether we look at age, family life stage, number of children, etc. But we also filter that down to housing. interest and motivation, personal appearance, because we know all these factors shape how somebody responds in a retail environment, but we also can break that down via shops used. So if you're an advertiser and you know that your audience shops at XYZ, we can refine these audiences to specifically target the shoppers who go to that store. And I think one thing to really highlight with AdSmart and all these clever technology innovations that we're doing is, I think in a world where generally everybody is clued up now on when they're on a Facebook targeted advert or whether they're on a Google paid advert, for TV, it's still a relatively new concept that people can get targeted ads. So it really gives this perception in market that, you know, you're this brand that's spending loads of money and you've got this supercharged TV campaign, when actually it could be a very modest budget. And actually you've realized, I just want to target. And if we go to the next slide, I just want to target someone like Francesca, for example. So as you can see here, Francesca is generally 26 to 35. She's got a high interest in fashion and the stores that she chooses to go to are premium. But actually we can break that down further into key features such as likes to stand out, buys things they don't need, a bit like me, high disposable income, premier clothes and personal care, fashion magazines, luxury jewelry, etc. And we can also further break down onto the channels and technology that Francesca uses or is most likely to use, then to kind of funnel whether we look at on demand or live or a digital activation to just really encompass all those touch points. But as you can see here, and this is kind of the final case study from me, but it's a breakdown of how our web attribution dashboard works. And as you can see here, I've white labeled it obviously to protect the advertiser, but this was a 6-week campaign we ran for a new to TV brand who were, I guess, slightly nervous because they had to, following this campaign, present to senior stakeholders that it had been a success, so we've been able to move the needle specifically for brand awareness and brand perception. But actually what we were able to do for the advertiser was actually say, listen, we have switched that needle. What we've also done is made you a lot of money, because if you look at the dashboard here, these are the types of analysis we can provide. So we have the top level information regarding how many households are reached, delivered impressions, how many times the advert was seen, etc. But we can also look at how the visits to website have performed versus those who were targeted on AdSmart and those who weren't. And as you can see here, the uplift based on the targeting that we applied to the TV campaign is far greater than the general audience that visited that website. And again, just some key takeaways here. So the unique visitors to site over the 6-week campaign was 4,600, which means the total visits to website was basically 11,000 visits. And actually what we were able to provide to the advertiser was you had 669 items added to bag, a conversion rate of 14%, and this advertiser was a very top luxe advertiser. So 669 items added to bag far outweighed how much they invest in the campaign. And as a result, again, with most of our advertisers that start on a reserve budget trying to test the tech, they immediately scaled this up and added it to a core part of their marketing mix going forwards.
So essentially bringing more brands in, Adam, as it gets more measurable now is kind of what he's saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm loving that continued growth in TV, and I'm especially loving the shopper segmentation targeting. Can't wait to see what comes after that. Imogen, is there a next generation on what you're working with at Acast?
Definitely. Well, talking about growth, what's so exciting about the podcast industry is it's one that is growing massively and evolving regularly. So that allows for lots of opportunity for development in loads of different areas. So these are just a few trends we're seeing at the moment, are kind of these exciting advances in ad tech, content discovery and industry buying. So if we start with ad tech development, we're all about conversational targeting at the moment. So this is our speech to text technology that unlocks episodic targeting, so it goes beyond just that genre or show style. So through this, we're improving brands' ability to target those relevant conversations. So that's literally what podcasts are about. They are conversations, and ultimately within that there's a huge amount of organic targeting opportunities. So it could be James Acast, who we saw before, talking about his favorite ice cream in a comedy show, or organic mentions of brands by our podcasters like Dan Snow, for example, who drives a Ford car and talks about it regularly on his history podcast. We can't listen to absolutely everything, but our tech absolutely can. So this provides a major opportunity for brands that want to champion that brand advocacy and get hyper contextual without cookies. We're also working on the kind of next iteration of this, which will consider sentiment. So meaning we'll be able to kind of target based on the human element of the conversation, not just the words, but the meaning behind them. So it'll be a really powerful way to tap into those meaningful conversations and ensure brands are landing the messages in the right place with the right tone when the listeners are really primed and ready to listen. So watch the space on that one. But if you go to the next slide, then we're also developing in the content space as well. So we're helping to best discover your content. So for this, Acast have partnered with Podchaser. So Podchaser is all about discoverability, which is helping solve one of kind of podcasting's toughest problems at the moment, and is something that's vital to continued growth of the whole industry. So through verified listener and podcaster contributions, the Podchaser's database makes it easy for listeners to discover new podcasts and find out information about existing ones too, across all of the different listening apps you're listening on, as well as providing that trustworthy, transparent data for advertisers and marketing professionals to kind of more efficiently find and reach those engaged podcast audiences. So this increased visibility helps creators grow their shows and make more money, and the combination of Podchaser and Acast also pushes forward that innovation, elevating discoverability for all in the industry and providing even better results for kind of listeners, advertisers and partners alike. And then lastly, our last trend, with the growth of the industry and kind of listenership, content creation and ad spend, we're also recognizing the importance of developing how brands can actually buy in podcast space. So to serve all brands, kind of big and small, we've created this new self-serve platform, which enables brands of any size and any budget to reach this highly engaged audience and communities across our over 100,000 podcasts in the Acast marketplace. So this piece of tech basically allows advertisers to start their podcasting advertising journey for as little as £250. It offers the autonomy, so it's ideal for those small businesses and startups that need a voice, that want to start kind of buying in the podcast space. And we're seeing agencies and clients alike use this tool.
That's a great tool. Thanks, Imogen. I really like the part about sentiment targeting as well. It's such a growth area. I mean, for us as well, we've developed a tool that looks at the search intent behind search terms to kind of really open up the things that you can target and sort of for content development as well. I think we'll see some more growth in that area, I'm sure, very fast. Over to you, Roddy. Big innovators at TikTok. What's next for measuring and unlocking brand performance for you guys?
I'm going to talk about one super innovative and exciting branding product that we have at the moment, and it's called Brand Admission. So I want you to imagine this: you've got into the office on a Monday morning and you're speaking to the marketing team and you're talking about how you've heard of some product or brand or service that's gone viral on TikTok over the weekend, and you're thinking, why can't that be us? Well, we have the solution for that. In advertising, there seems to be a disconnect between advertising and virality, and we're trying to bring the two together with this product. So this is TikTok's latest brand solution that fuels our creator economy and levels up our brand impact through authentic and relevant user-generated content and ads. So how does this work in practice? Well, your brand or your business creates a creative concept mission, and this is like a trend. And you match that with, let's say, a hashtag and details about how a creator, be it someone just using the TikTok app as a general user or a really high-end creator, can engage in this trend that you've created. And then this fuels mass content creation. So we can see on the screen an example of how that might look in terms of our user interface. So we see hashtag golden hour as a challenge. So it's saying that it is starting an official fall challenge to celebrate its 60th birthday. Anyone can participate by shooting their favorite makeup packs with golden hour sunlight shining on them. Don't forget to hashtag golden hour. So this is actually a place where users and creators can come into on the TikTok app and choose to join the challenge. You can see that it says the top videos in this mission are getting 100K plus views. And when they're prompted to join now, they actually have the ability, creators have the ability to earn rewards from getting involved in your challenge, which not only is fueling your brand, but actually fueling our creators and fueling TikTok as a whole. Now, what's this look like when it comes to the 3-in-1 solution? I'm going to talk through that in a bit more detail on the next slide. So The first is that we actually get to crowdsource authentic content from diverse creators. So you're not going out there and looking for 5, 10, 15 creators. We're doing that for you. You can actually drive insane, incredible amount of viewership, but you can transform the top performing videos as ads. So you're not putting ad spend behind every video. There are certain metrics that you can choose. Say, once they hit this level, we're going to fuel it with some ad spend, or you can go in and handpick the top creatives yourself. So what does this do? Well, it drives brand affinity, but we also guarantee media impressions. So although this is an open-ended challenge, we say, well, with this budget, we can guarantee this amount of reach, this amount of clicks, etc. So how does that work in practice? Let's have a look at a case study. So on the next slide, we can see that Bomb Pop launched the first branded mission campaign bundle in the US during the 4th of July. Their hashtag was a flavor for every you, so they owned this hashtag, and they would have had their own page like we saw a few slides back, where creators are prompted to join the challenge. And as you can see here, we have an example of a creator, and we actually have a branded effect that couples with this, and it says, what's your favorite? And it could be book, artist, animal, and each category will relate to a different flavor within the FMCG category that we have. And what were the results? Well, we had over 1,200 creator submissions. So these are creators that clicked that button and created some content that was relevant to your challenge. But this fueled 40,000 consumer video creations, so creating massive virality through advertising. So solving that problem of advertising versus viral. Where do they mix? They mix here with brand admission. And what's the actual results of this campaign? Well, a 13.2% increase in ad recall compared to other channels, 37.4 million video views, and an 11% engagement rate. So insane results, and that's the beauty of virality and branding on Brandformance.
Very cool. Everyone wants a viral campaign, really, don't they? Especially when it's measurable. Hannah, what's coming up at Tug for next generation measurement?
Yes, so a theme for what I'm going to be talking about is about how much we're focused on using automation and machine learning combined with the human insights that we have from our really talented teams to really drive increased effectiveness for all of our campaigns. So firstly, I'm going to tease a new Tug tool that we're working on that helps us automate some of the planning part of our role as media buyers to help improve Brandformance, which effectively helps us generate more accurate forecasts and also more trend analysis for our clients, but also our teams internally. So that will help us plan more effective campaigns, knowing which channels have historically worked better and are predicted to work better, but will also help us create better measurement plans as well, because we'll know kind of what KPIs and benchmarks that we're working with. We're also creating new protocols about how we use AI in planning. So for example, using generative AI to analyze advertiser data to find new opportunities, or that helps us minimize friction in our research phase. We also looking at things like using natural language processing to review things like customer sentiment, and we can do this across multiple languages using AI in a way that is quite difficult to do just with our team based here in the UK. And that helps us find different USPs for different audiences or different markets that we wouldn't necessarily be able to find quickly without that. So that's what we're working on from a planning perspective. And then secondly, from an attribution perspective, so looking at how we take that measurement to the next level. So it's no secret that current attribution models have never really been particularly useful at helping show the value of the offline channels and the upper funnel activity that we've been discussing today. But they're also becoming increasingly unreliable even for lower funnel channels post-cookie. So for us, the focus is on being able to create a new version of attribution that helps solve both of those problems rather than just focusing on them in silos. So that's the main thing that we're looking at, is looking at bringing cohort level insight into more traditional media mix modeling. So the way that we'll do that is by looking at combined data sources and have this kind of running model of attribution that's focused on truly full funnel impact measurement. So the diagram on the right shows how some of these different measurement types overlap and the sort of models that we're building to help our clients look at the impact of campaigns. So obviously things like platform attribution, so making sure that we've got the right tracking in place, that we're measuring the right things. Everything is privacy centric, but it's also functional from a cookieless perspective for each of our platforms. So our data team have been doing a lot of work on things like server-side tracking for our clients. We're also then looking at more ID-based attribution setup. So we have another Tug tool. We've not gone into a lot of detail about it today, but it's called Tug CID. And what Tug CID does is help us really link offline and online data. So looking at things like lifetime value, or if you're a B2B client, looking at that journey from, say, leads to MQL, SQL, etc. And that helps us link that offline and online data. The third one at the bottom there is using the tools like Real Impact and Lift Analytics that I've discussed already. But what the platform attribution and the ID attribution models help us do is help feed those models with much more interesting data. So what we're able to then do is look at that statistical modeling to really show the impact on campaigns. So an example for how this looks from a Brandformance perspective would be, for example, if we want to look holistically at the impact of an out-of-home campaign by showing that it can deliver platform lift through, say, PPC, SEO, direct and organic traffic, but also helping improve lifetime value, which we can measure through the CID. So while this feels very technical and very performance and very lower funnel, actually the application of this running model and this advanced media mix modeling can be used across all different types of channels. And for channels like paid social, which really do cover the full funnel, it's especially effective, as we saw in the end case study earlier.
What a great point to finish on, Hannah. I mean, really, it's about linking that online and offline journey. It's such a key point for marketers. And there's such innovative things that are coming down the track that you've all talked about today. So I want to thank you very much for you all for joining in there. I think we've probably got a question or two before we wrap up. So I've just had a quick pick through the things that have come through. I'd like to pick out this question actually, because we've talked a lot about the opportunity in Brandformance and the new things that are coming up, and you know, there's a lot of innovation that we're seeing. This question says, what's the biggest watch out with measuring the impact of branding? Hannah, I wonder if that should come to you.
Yeah, of course. So I think from our perspective, I know we've just basically spent the last 45 minutes talking about how we should really be looking at real business results and revenue and those lower funnel metrics for these kinds of channels, because they can deliver them. But what we also want to make sure we're not doing is going too far down the road of only looking at that as the key metric, because I think what all of the speakers we've had have spoken about is how there are these metrics and these impacts and these KPIs that these channels have, which goes way beyond just looking at revenue. So we want to make sure that we're still looking at the benefits of these other campaigns from that more emotive standpoint. So looking at increased brand trust, loyalty, overall awareness, those kind of longer term metrics that are a little bit softer and a little bit harder to measure. They're still super important, because especially with things like AI making a big rise and the originality being maybe at risk there, like looking at channels like TV and TikTok and podcasts, having that originality and that being able to have people remember your brand name is super important then when you look at things like PPC, which are increasingly homogenized.
Good point. Anybody else want to add on to that?
I think just in terms of kind of what Hannah said, TV and also the other platforms that I'm learning about that are on the call today really drive that emotiveness. So whilst it's obviously great that we can provide all this great intellect, I would by no means ever say if you've got just one pot of money, just spend it all in one avenue, because I think all of these things work much better when they are part of a 360 marketing mix. And actually the brands that, or the platforms rather, that are driving emotiveness and really getting that trust and recognition only feed into the other direct marketing, I'd say, that you're currently doing.
Better together, Adam. I couldn't have said it better myself. What a great way to end. I'm just conscious of time, so I think I'd just like to wrap up by going back around everyone and getting a key takeout. Adam, what's your key takeout for our listeners today?
I just think it's probably that TV, and also as I'm learning, the other platforms have never been more measurable. So I think it's about, you know, having conversations about capabilities and how they align to your KPIs to really get these campaigns elevated. Because as I just touched upon, I've seen the difference that these types of activations have done, not just for my singular campaigns, but for all the campaigns that my advertisers are currently working on.
Imogen, how about you? Key takeout?
Yeah, from a podcast perspective, is exactly that 360 sphere of influence that we should focus on here. So podcasts and now the new influencers, the hosts are. So, which is why we're kind of seeing them and brands go with them beyond the pod for cross-platform campaigns, which means that exactly that you can pull on those different levers of different areas of podcast for performance. So like an example, you could have a QR code on a podcast sponsorship driving acquisition via those personal host read endorsements, but at the same time as them kind of hosting a live show and selling out the O2 Arena with your brand associated with that, so driving positive association and fame. So in this way, podcasts, you know, offer that flexibility to perform both an acquisition and brand. It's like an all-encompassing 360 sphere that you need to consider when kind of working in this space.
Thanks, Imogen. Roddy, how about you? What's your key takeout for us?
Yeah, I think it's got to be the influence that branding and traffic campaigns can have and ultimately lower funnel conversion rates. We saw there in my slide that it had a 2 to 3 times increase in conversion rates with branding activity, which is huge, really impactful. And then one other key takeaway is if you're an e-commerce brand, TikTok Shop is the way to go. Closed funnel, no data being lost, all happening in one app.
Brilliant. Hannah, let's switch to you to close us off.
Yes, I think for me, it's about the importance of investment in data insights and tech to really help show the value of these campaigns. So it might be that you focus on building the skill set of your internal team. It might be building out a more useful tech suite to show the value of all of these different types of channels. Or it might be working with agencies that have it as a core part of their offering, like us.
Perfect. Thank you, Hannah. Listen, it looks like we're at the end of our session today. I just wanted to say thanks to my amazing guests, Adam, Imogen, Roddy and Hannah. Thanks to all of you for joining. We will send the recording. Please do get in touch at hellotugagency.com if you want to chat about anything you've heard today. Look out for the invite for our next webinar. It's probably going to be around search generative experience in the new year. But for now, goodbye from all of us and thanks again.